Hello, I'm Dr. James Peterson, an 5-year-old internal medicine physician. It might surprise you to learn that I still see patients in my outpatient clinic twice a week. People often ask me, with a mix of curiosity and disbelief, how it's possible for someone my age to continue practicing medicine. The secret, I tell them, isn't some miracle cure or a groundbreaking new technology. It's far simpler than that. For nearly 60 years, I've had the privilege of sitting face to face with thousands of patients, listening to their stories, and studying their conditions. In that time, I've come to understand a fundamental truth that our modern medical system often overlooks. The health of our bodies doesn't solely depend on fancy pharmaceuticals or expensive high-tech treatments. The true foundation of healing and prevention begins at the one place we visit every single day, the dinner table. While many of my colleagues focused on prescribing medication to treat the symptoms that appeared on the surface, I found myself spending more and more time delving into my patients' daily lives, particularly their eating habits. It was in their refrigerators and on their plates that I found the real culprits behind their suffering. This simple, often neglected truth that food is the most powerful medicine is the very engine that allows me, at 85, to remain healthy, active, and dedicated to my work. Today, I want to share with you the wisdom I've gathered over a long lifetime of practice, supported by data from countless patient files. What I'm about to tell you might be a truth you'll never hear in a hospital corridor, as it challenges the very foundation of a system built on treatment rather than prevention. But it is my deepest hope that the knowledge I've gained through experience can become the starting point of a small journey that will change your life. When you picture a 93-year-old man, what comes to mind? A frail figure in a rocking chair. Perhaps, what if I told you about a man of that age who not only saw patients in his own clinic, but also tended to his garden, his hands still strong enough to work the earth? It sounds impossible, doesn't it? But such vitality is within reach. The tragedy is that, for so many, it's cut short by choices they don't even realize are harmful. I'll never forget the day I received the emergency call. It was a Tuesday morning. A man in his late 70s, a Mr. Harrison, had collapsed right after finishing his breakfast. The paramedics were already on their way. By the time he arrived at the emergency room, his blood pressure was a staggering 210/110 mmHg. A CT scan confirmed our worst fears, all massive cerebral hemorrhage, a brain bleed. When I spoke with his distraught family, they couldn't understand what had happened. His breakfast, they said, was the same thing he ate every morning: a bowl of rice, a cup of miso soup, and a small dish of kimchi. He ate just like he always does. His wife repeated, her voice trembling with confusion and grief. That phrase, just like he always does, etched itself into my mind. It was a heartbreaking testament to a silent killer. The tragic irony was that his normal meal, the comforting routine he'd followed for years, was precisely what had caused the catastrophic event. The immense load of sodium from the soup and kimchi had been relentlessly battering the walls of his arteries, year after year, until one finally gave way. In my decades as a physician, I have witnessed this exact scenario play out more times than I can count. Patients wheeled in, their families echoing the same sentiment, but they were just eating. They were unaware of the disease silently accumulating within their bodies, a shadow growing longer with every meal. Perhaps you're reassuring yourself right now, I don't eat a lot of sweets, so I'm fine. I only have a little salt, so it can't be that bad. Or maybe I tried to eat light, so I'm healthy. Are you sure? The most insidious problems are often hidden in the plain sight of our everyday routines. It's the accumulation of these seemingly tiny habits that gradually wears down our blood vessels, eventually leading us to a point of no return. Have you ever experienced a moment like that? A sudden health scare, either your own or a loved one's, that makes you question everything. Have you ever had to say a final goodbye to someone far too soon and thought, I don't want to end up like that? I have stood by the bedsides of countless patients, witnessing not only their pain, but also the profound suffering of their families. The caregivers whose lives are turned upside down is a heavy burden to watch, and it has always pained my heart What I came to realize is that the starting point for so much of this anguish was found right at the dinner table. I wanted, more than anything, to make more people aware of this fact. That is why I am speaking to you today, to share the critical wisdom I've gained through decades of clinical practice, hoping it may save you and your family from a similar fate. It was after seeing one too many cases like Mr. Harrison's that my approach to medicine fundamentally changed. I began to look beyond simply writing prescriptions. I started to dissect my patients' diets, to understand their food from the ground up. It's rare to find a doctor in a busy hospital who will sit down and have a serious conversation about what you had for lunch. But I became convinced that this was the most important conversation I could have. I knew with absolute certainty that we had to change the plate before we could rely on the pill. Relying solely on blood pressure, medication, or diabetes drugs to fix the problem is like trying to mop up a flooded floor while the faucet is still running at full blast. It's a temporary fix, not a true recovery. But when I started guiding my patients, helping them adjust their meals, and mapping out new ways of eating, something remarkable began to happen. I saw blood pressure readings stabilize and then fall into healthy ranges. I watched as fasting blood sugar levels returned to normal. Cholesterol panels that had been alarming for years began to show visible, undeniable improvement. As their bodies healed from the inside out, many patients were able to reduce the dosage of their medications. Some, to their astonishment and mine, were able to stop taking them altogether. The fog of illness lifted from their faces, their energy returned, their lives were transformed. And all of this was achieved not through some expensive new wonder drug or a radical surgical procedure. It was accomplished by adjusting the simple act of eating the food they consumed every day. These experiences solidified my conviction: food is the best medicine and the most powerful form of prevention we have. But to truly grasp this, you must hear the whole story. The 5 categories of food I'm about to introduce, along with the so-called health foods that are often deceptive, are the hidden culprits that threaten our well-being. If you can reduce or replace even one of them, I promise you, your body will respond positively. I sincerely hope that the wisdom contained in my experience will help you live a healthier, fuller life. What will you choose to change about your dinner tonight? What is the first step you can take right now? The 5 foods that high blood pressure and diabetes patients must never eat? Yeah. Salt, the silent assassin. Salt, or more specifically, the sodium it contains, is so ubiquitous on our tables that we barely notice it. Yet, it is the primary culprit behind high blood pressure, a true silent assassin. It stealthily infiltrates our 3 meals a day through soups, broths, cured meats, pickled foods like kimchi or sauerkraut, and countless processed items. With each bite, it tightens its grip on our blood vessels. I always emphasize to my patients, sodium is a poison for your blood pressure. When you consume excess sodium, your body retains extra water to dilute it. This increases the total volume of blood inside your vessels. Imagine a garden hose. If you force more water through it, the pressure inside the hose builds up. The same thing happens in your arteries. This constant, elevated pressure, known as hypertension, forces your heart to work much harder and damages the delicate lining of your arteries over time. Hypertension is dangerous on its own, but its true threat lies in the catastrophic complications it can trigger: stroke, heart attack, kidney failure, and vision loss. I remember a patient, Mr. Thompson, a 76-year-old gentleman who declared he couldn't enjoy a meal without a rich, salty broth. He especially loved a piping hot bowl of soup. Regardless of the season, one day, he was rushed to the emergency room with a blinding headache and violent nausea. When he arrived, his blood pressure was over 220 millimeters G. He was diagnosed with a cerebral hemorrhage, the same fate that had befallen Mr. Harrison. Mr. Thompson told me later, "Doctor, I never thought I ate that much salt." But as we reviewed his daily diet, it became clear that his table was flooded with sodium. His breakfast often included bacon or sausage. His lunch was a canned soup, and his dinner was rarely without a salty gravy or broth. He was completely unaware of how it was all adding up. So, What can be done? It's not about eliminating flavor. It's about being smarter. Rethink your soups and stews. When you eat soup, focus on the solids, the vegetables, the meat, the noodles. The vast majority of the sodium is dissolved in the liquid broth. Leaving even half the broth behind can cut your sodium intake dramatically. Tame your pickles. For foods like kimchi, sauerkraut, or other pickled vegetables, a quick rinse under running water can wash away a significant amount of surface salt without destroying the food's character. Embrace natural aromatics. Unleash the power of garlic, onions, ginga, turmeric, black pepper, herbs, and citrus. These ingredients can add incredible depth and flavor to your cooking, allowing you to reduce your reliance on salt. A squeeze of lemon or a dash of chili flakes can brighten up a dish in a way salt never could. Beware of healthy salts. Many people are misled into believing that sea salt, Himalayan pink salt, or other artisanal salts are healthier options. While they may contain trace amounts of other minerals, they are still overwhelmingly composed of sodium chloride. From your blood pressure's perspective, salt is salt. There is no such thing as a good salt. The crucial factor is the total quantity you consume. Become a label detective. The greatest source of sodium in the modern diet isn't the salt shaker. It's hidden in processed foods, canned goods, frozen dinners, sausages, deli meats, crackers, and even bread can be loaded with sodium. Get into the habit of reading the nutrition label. You will be shocked. Are refined carbohydrates, the blood sugar spikers. Those soft, white, comforting foods, they may be sweet to the palate, but they are toxic to your blood vessels. I'm talking about white rice, pasta, noodles, white bread, and rice cakes. These are what we call refined carbohydrates, and they are the primary fuel for the fire of diabetes. When a grain is refined, its fibrous outer layers, the bran and germ, are stripped away, leaving only the starchy endosperm. This process removes nearly all the fiber, vitamins, and minerals. Without fiber to slow things down, these foods are digested almost instantly, dumping a massive load of glucose into your bloodstream. This sudden surge is called a blood sugar spike. In response, your pancreas scrambles to pump out a large amount of insulin, the hormone responsible for escorting sugar out of the blood and into your cells. Over time, this constant cycle of spiking and crashing exhausts the pancreas. Your cells also become resistant to insulin signals, a condition known as insulin resistance. This is the gateway to full-blown type 2 diabetes. For those who already have diabetes, these foods are even more dangerous. I think of Mrs. Davis, a 79-year-old woman who insisted, "I never eat sweets. Doctor, I stay away from cake and cookies." But when I looked closer at her food diary, a different story emerged. For breakfast, she'd have a couple of soft rice cakes. Lunch was a large bowl of white rice. Dinner was often a comforting plate of udon noodles. In her mind, she was avoiding sugar. But in reality, every single meal was a dose of fast-acting refined carbohydrates that sent her blood sugar soaring. Eventually, Mrs. Davis arrived at my clinic with a fasting blood glucose level of 290 mgdl. A normal level is under 100. She had developed severe diabetic neuropathy, a type of nerve damage that had left the soles of her feet completely numb. She was in a precarious situation, at high risk for non-healing ulcers and potential amputation. How can we avoid this trap? Go for the whole grain. Instead of white rice, choose whole grains like brown rice, barley, quinoa, or steel-cut oats. These grains retain their fiber, which slows down digestion and leads to a much gentler, more gradual rise in blood sugar. If switching completely is too difficult at first, start small. Mix a single tablespoon of brown rice into your white rice. Gradually increase the ratio over time. Choose better bread. If you enjoy sandwiches or toast, swap out your white bread for a loaf made with 100% whole wheat or whole grain. Look for the word whole as the first ingredient on the list. Snack smarter. If you often reach for rice cakes or crackers as a snack, consider a steamed sweet potato or a small portion of roasted pumpkin instead. These are rich in fiber and nutrients, providing a sense of fullness and a natural, slow release sweetness that won't spike your blood sugar. Eliminate liquid sugar. Be especially wary of sugary drinks like sodas, fruit juices, and sweetened teas. Liquid sugar is absorbed even faster than solid refined carbohydrates, delivering a massive shock to your system. Make water your primary beverage. It's not about making a radical overnight change that feels unsustainable. The key is to start with one small, manageable substitution. That single step, repeated daily, is the beginning of a profound transformation. SAN, saturated and trans fats. The artery cloggers, that crispy, crunchy texture of fried chicken, the rich, savory melt of pork belly. These foods bring immense pleasure to our mouths, but they quietly wage war on our hearts. The primary enemies here are saturated fats and their industrially produced cousins, trans fats, found abundantly in fried foods, fatty cuts of meat like pork belly and ribeye steak, and many baked goods. These fats are the main drivers of high cholesterol. They specifically raise the level of LDL, low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, often called the bad cholesterol. Excess LDL cholesterol builds up on the walls of your arteries, forming hard, waxy plaque. This process, known as atherosclerosis, narrows the arteries, restricting blood flow to your vital organs. Think of it as rust building up inside a pipe. Over time, the opening gets smaller and smaller, and eventually, it can become completely blocked. If this happens in an artery supplying the heart, it causes a heart attack. If it happens in an artery leading to the brain, it causes a stroke. Furthermore, these unhealthy fats worsen insulin resistance, making them a double threat that drives up both blood sugar and blood pressure. I treated a man named Mr. Miller, 66 years old, who told me that his one true joy in life was his Friday night pork belly barbecue. It was his ritual, a way to unwind from the week with friends, grilling fatty pork and enjoying a few drinks. He saw it as his way of relieving stress. 1 year later, Mr. Miller came to my office complaining of chest pain and shortness of breath that would come on with even mild exertion. An angiogram revealed the source of his stress was now inside his chest. The arteries supplying his heart were more than 50% blocked. He was diagnosed with severe angina and was in a critical situation requiring immediate consideration for bypass surgery. His weekly pleasure had almost cost him his life. How can you enjoy your food without sacrificing your heart? Choose leaner proteins. Instead of fatty pork belly or marbled steaks, opt for healthier protein sources. Oily fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which are actually protective for the heart. Skinless chicken breast is another excellent lean option. Change your cooking method. The way you cook is just as important as what you cook. Instead of deep frying, explore other methods. An air fryer can achieve a satisfying crispness with a fraction of the oil. Steaming, grilling, baking, and broiling are all fantastic ways to prepare food without adding unhealthy fats. Embrace healthy fats. Not all fats are bad. Unsaturated fats, found in foods like avocados, olive oil, almonds, and walnuts, are beneficial for heart health. A small handful of nuts makes for a much better snack than a bag of potato chips. Read the ingredients for trans fats. While many food manufacturers have phased them out, trans fats can still lurk in some processed foods, particularly baked goods, margarine, and fried fast food. Look for partially hydrogenated oil on the ingredient list that's trans fat in disguise, and you should avoid it at all costs. Unhealthy fats don't just raise your cholesterol. They create a vicious cycle by promoting insulin resistance, which makes blood sugar control difficult, which in turn contributes to high blood pressure. It's all connected. So, processed foods, the slow-acting poison, instant ramen, spam, sausages, frozen pizzas, and other processed foods offer a quick and convenient solution to a meal But in our quest for convenience, we often take a major detour from the path to good health. These foods are a Trojan horse, delivering a payload of sodium, sugar, unhealthy fats, and artificial additives directly into our bodies. These synthetic and highly concentrated ingredients accumulate over time, placing an enormous strain on our blood pressure, blood sugar, and especially our kidney function. They are, in essence, a slow acting poison that contributes directly to chronic disease for older adults whose kidney function is often naturally declining. A diet high in processed foods can be particularly devastating. I think of Mr. Wilson, a 70-year-old man who began living alone after his wife passed away. He told me that preparing meals had become a chore he no longer had the energy for. He fell into the habit of eating instant ramen for one meal and a simple dish of canned ham with instant rice for another. At first, he was pleased with the convenience, but 3 years later, Mr. Wilson came to the clinic complaining of extreme fatigue and severe swelling in his legs. The lab results were grim. He was diagnosed with end-stage renal failure. His kidneys had given out. He was faced with the life-altering reality of starting dialysis, and he realized, far too late, that his diet of convenience had led him to this tragic outcome. How can we eat healthily without spending hours in the kitchen? Embrace simplicity. A healthy meal doesn't have to be complicated. You can create a perfectly nutritious and satisfying meal with just a few simple, fresh ingredients. A bowl of rice with a fried egg, some steamed tofu, and a side of fresh greens is a wonderful meal. Master the microwave. Don't underestimate your microwave. You can quickly steam fresh vegetables, cook a piece of fish, or warm up healthy proteins. It's a tool for more than just reheating leftovers. Shop the perimeter. When you go grocery shopping, make a conscious effort to spend most of your time on the outer edges of the store. This is where the fresh produce, lean meats, and dairy are typically located. The inner aisles are the territory of processed, packaged foods. Look past the buzzwords. Don't be fooled by marketing terms like no additives or low sodium on the front of the package. Turn it over and read the actual nutrition facts panel. This is where the truth lies. The problem isn't just one ingredient. It's the complex, synergistic way these excessive amounts of sodium, sugar, and additives put a burden on all your major organs. Woo, sugar, the sweet temptation, the vessel destroyer, sweetened coffee drinks, desserts, sodas, and even fruit juices. These foods and beverages provide a momentary burst of pleasure, but are quietly destroying your body's vascular system from the inside out. They are one of the most destructive forces in the modern diet. Excessive sugar intake, especially from processed sources and sugary drinks, causes a rapid and violent spike in blood sugar. As we've discussed, this puts immense strain on the pancreas and is a direct cause of insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. But the damage goes further. High blood sugar levels worsen cholesterol profiles and, critically, trigger inflammation throughout the body, particularly on the delicate inner walls of your blood vessels. This inflammation accelerates atherosclerosis, the hardening and narrowing of the arteries. Of all the devastating complications of diabetes, the most feared are those caused by vascular damage. The tiny blood vessels in the eyes are destroyed, leading to blindness. The vessels in the kidneys fail, leading to renal failure. The vessels in the heart and brain are blocked, leading to heart attacks and strokes. And the vessels in the extremities are compromised, leading to neuropathy, gangrene, and amputation. I will never forget Mrs. Clark, an 80-year-old woman who told me that her one little joy in life was a slice of cake and a cup of instant coffee mix loaded with sugar and creamer after her dinner each evening. This sweet daily ritual, which she saw as a small, harmless indulgence, was systematically poisoning her. Mrs. Clark was eventually hospitalized with a blood sugar level soaring over 350 mg. She had developed severe peripheral vascular disease. The circulation to her feet was so poor that her toes had begun to turn black from gangrene. We were in a desperate situation, having serious discussions about the need to amputate her foot to save her life. This sweet temptation, her one little joy, was about to rob her of her mobility and independence. How can we break free from this sweet temptation? Re-engineer your coffee. Instead of a sugary coffee mix, switch to black coffee. If you find it too bitter, add a small splash of regular milk to add some creaminess without the sugar. Find naturally sweet alternatives. When you crave something sweet after a meal, instead of reaching for cake or cookies, try a steamed sweet potato, a baked apple with cinnamon, or a handful of berries. These foods contain fiber, which helps slow the absorption of their natural sugars. A half-baked apple provides a satisfying sweetness without the dangerous blood sugar spike of a rice cake. Understand the addiction. The complications of diabetes are profound and often irreversible. Once an organ is damaged, it's incredibly difficult to bring it back. You must treat sugar addiction with the seriousness of a drug addiction. Before it takes hold, you must cut back. Avoid artificial sweeteners. Some products replace sugar with artificial sweeteners, but these are not a magic bullet. Emerging research suggests they may have negative impacts on gut health and metabolic signals. The best approach is to reduce your overall reliance on intense sweetness, whether it's real or artificial. Where will you start? The hidden traps. Healthy foods that harm you. One of the most disheartening things I've encountered in my practice is seeing patients who genuinely believe they are making healthy choices, only to discover that the very foods they trust are contributing to their illness. We have a tendency to latch onto the idea that a specific food is a superfood and consume it without reservation, or to judge a food based on a single nutrient while ignoring the bigger picture. But even foods widely known as healthy can become toxic depending on how they are prepared and what they are consumed with. Here are 5 of the most common health food traps my patients fall into. The fruit is always healthy trap. Many people believe that because fruit is natural and packed with vitamins and fiber, it can be eaten without limit. While fruit can certainly be a nutritious part of a diet, the problem lies in its sugar content. Fructose, for individuals with diabetes or anyone needing to manage their blood sugar, certain fruits can be a poison in disguise. Fruits like bananas, grapes, and persimmons have a high glycemic index, meaning they can cause a sharp and rapid rise in blood sugar. The danger is amplified when fruit is consumed as juice. Juicing removes the all-important fiber, leaving you with what is essentially a glass of sugar water that hits your bloodstream almost instantly. It's far better to eat your fruit whole. Stick to modest portions of lower sugar fruits like berries, apples, and pears. The sea salt is a healthy salt trap. There is a widespread perception that natural salts like sea salt or Himalayan salt are healthier than regular table salt because they contain more minerals. This is dangerously misleading. While it's true these salts contain trace amounts of minerals like calcium and magnesium, the quantities are so minuscule they have no significant impact on your health. The critical fact is that all salt, whether it's white, pink, or gray, is about 98% sodium chloride. Your blood pressure cannot tell the difference. The fantasy of a good salt allows people to continue over-consuming sodium under the illusion of health. The only thing that matters is reducing your total salt intake, regardless of its origin. Sand. The rice cakes are better than bread trap. Many people, particularly those with a cultural affinity for rice, assume that traditional rice cakes are a healthier option than Western-style bread. This is often untrue. A rice cake made from white rice is a quintessential refined carbohydrate. It contains almost no fiber, is digested with incredible speed, and can have a glycemic index that is actually higher than white bread. This causes a severe blood sugar spike and is particularly dangerous for diabetics. If you are going to eat rice cakes, choose those made with brown or multi-grain rice. Eat only a small portion, and be sure to pair it with fiber-rich vegetables and a source of protein to help blunt the glycemic impact. The low-fat dairy is always safe trap. Choosing low-fat milk is a common strategy for people trying to be health conscious. While low-fat milk itself isn't a problem, the issue arises with the products made from it. When manufacturers remove fat from products like yogurt or lattes, they often add large amounts of sugar to make them more palatable. A fruit on the bottom low-fat yogurt can contain more sugar than a candy bar. A sweetened low-fat latte can be a veritable sugar bomb. Always check the nutrition label for added sugars, even on products marketed as low-fat or light. The healthy-looking meal trap. This is perhaps the most subtle trap of all. It's possible to assemble a meal where every individual component seems healthy, but the combination is a disaster for your blood pressure, blood sugar, and cholesterol. Consider this meal: a bowl of no sugar, added yogurt topped with a sliced banana, a side salad with a light vinaigrette, and a cup of miso soup. It looks like the epitome of health, but let's break it down. The banana is high in sugar, spiking your blood glucose. The light salad dressing is often low in fat but high in hidden sugar and sodium. The miso soup is a sodium bomb, raising your blood pressure. The yogurt, while seemingly plain, can still contribute to an overall high carbohydrate load. The combined effect of this meal is to raise your blood sugar, your blood pressure, and, due to the inflammatory effects of sugar, your bad cholesterol. What matters is not just the healthiness of individual foods, but the balance and harmony of the entire meal. You must learn to look at the total load of sodium, sugar, and saturated fat on your plate. If you started making changes today, what would your life look like 1 year from now? Your choice, your future. Diabetes, hypertension, and high cholesterol. The names of these diseases are common, but their consequences are anything but ordinary. What is truly terrifying is not the conditions themselves, but the complications that follow in their wake: blindness, a heart that stops beating, kidneys that fail, requiring you to be tethered to a machine for the rest of your life, a leg that no longer works, or worse, must be removed until that day comes. We whisper to ourselves, "I'll be okay," but that day does not announce its arrival. It comes silently, and it comes suddenly, and once it arrives, there is often no going back. Having stood at the bedside of countless patients, I know this truth more intimately than anyone. Your health, right now, in this very moment, hinges on the small choices you are about to make. Think back one more time to the 5 foods I warned you about. Salt, the silent assassin. You must reduce your intake of all salt, white rice, and white flour. The blood sugar spikers. You must make an effort to switch to whole grains, fried foods, and pork belly. The artery cloggers. For the sake of your heart, you must change your cooking methods and your choice of meats. Processed foods, the slow-acting poison. You must cultivate the habit of cooking simple, fresh meals. And finally, sugar, the sweet temptation that destroys your blood vessels. You must be most vigilant about added sugars and liquid carbohydrates. Remember the traps: the high sugar fruit, the myth of good salt, and the seemingly healthy meals that are anything but. Will you follow the fleeting pleasure of your taste buds? Or will you choose to protect your precious life? What if you changed just one meal? What if you decided to leave half the broth in your soup bowl, or to mix a spoonful of brown rice in with your white? What if, instead of instant ramen, you prepared a simple, healthy tofu stew? What if you started by replacing that sweet coffee with a warm glass of water? That one small change is the beginning of a new path. It is a path that leads not to the hospital, but to a life of health and vitality. It is never too late to start. My sincere wish is that you begin this small practice today, right now. In my next discussion, I will share with you the best combinations of vegetables and fruits to actively lower your blood pressure and blood sugar, making your table not just safe, but truly medicinal. Until then, please make a healthy choice.